Now, on his 100th day as Speaker of the House of Representatives, Louisiana Congressman, Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, is with me now. Mr. Speaker, great to see you.
Well, thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
Congratulations to you on 100 days. We just led into this segment with President Trump. What are your thoughts on the deal from the Senate? Are you going to agree to this?
It's very concerning. We really don't know anything yet. It's all conjecture because we've not seen the text. Now, we've been promised that for over 2 months. Chuck Schumer has been presiding over that, of course. He has the Democrat majority in the Senate. They've been trying to work this deal. We've heard rumors about it, reports about it. But even as we sit here this morning, Maria, I've never seen the text. So.
Well, they say they're going to release it tonight. That in and of itself makes me think, well, why release it on a Friday night going into the weekend? What's that about?
Who knows? I don't know what to make of that. I hope that it comes out soon, if indeed there is going to be text. But again, we've been promised this for weeks and weeks. The House did our job. Remember, we passed H.R. 2. That's our Secure the Border Act. Months ago, 9 months ago, it's been sitting on Chuck Schumer's desk collecting dust. If they really wanted to solve the problem, all he has to do is bring that up for a vote and send it to the president's desk. But he refuses to do that.
And that's exactly what I was just going to say. Mr. Speaker, you've already done H.R. 2. What was the point of going to the Senate and starting from scratch when you've already put the building blocks in place?
Yeah, and those building blocks are the necessary elements. Remember, we would fix the broken parole system, end the catch and release policy, restore the Remain in Mexico policy, which was President Trump's main tool there that stemmed the flow. As he said, he had the most secure border in the history of the country, and now we have the worst unmitigated catastrophe that you can imagine. The Biden went in on the first day of office and began issuing executive orders to unwind and create this catastrophe. Maria, we say it's by design because there is no other explanation. We documented 64 specific actions, executive actions, agency actions that he and Mayorkas have taken to create this. They could unwind it today by the stroke of a pen, but they refused to do it.
So, I mean, Mayorkas is now facing an impeachment in the House. Colorado Congressman Ken Buck was the one Republican coming out against impeaching the Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. He called it a stunt, Mr. Speaker. Is it a stunt? Do you have the votes to impeach Mayorkas?
Absolutely not. Ken Buck's a good friend and colleague. I'll talk with him this weekend. I saw those comments. They're concerning because, look, everybody knows Mayorkas is an unmitigated disaster as a cabinet secretary. I believe he's the worst in the history of the country. And impeachment is a really important and serious measure for the House to take. It's a heavy responsibility that we have under the Constitution. But when someone refuses to comply with their oath of office, when they intentionally break existing federal law, and when they lie to Congress, it's a great breach of public trust. And there really is no other measure that we have in the House to hold them accountable but that ultimate penalty.
Well, is anybody going to be held accountable for not sharing information with you, the leader of the House of Representatives? I mean, with all due respect, it's a little strange to me that you have not been involved in these talks, and you say you have not seen any text on this border deal, which is the crux of our issues in America right now.
It's the biggest crisis that we face. I've been in 15 states since I've been the Speaker of the House for the last 100 days. Everywhere I go, whether it's out west, Midwest, East Coast, Long Island, Deep South, everybody says the same thing. We can't continue this. This is not a sustainable thing. 302,000 illegals came across that border in December alone. Those were the ones encountered. Of course, we have no idea how many have come in. Over 300 people on the terrorist watch list. Those are the ones we've apprehended. We have no idea who's come in, what terrorist cells are set up around our country, what they're plotting right now. The fentanyl, crisis that we have, it's a leading cause of death for Americans aged 18 to 49. It goes on and on and on. The human trafficking. We have to stop this, and it's absolute madness. I gave a big, long speech on the House floor this week. I cannot understand why President Biden would not use his existing executive authority that he has right now to stop this. He won't.
Instead, he said things like, give me the power, give me this, give me that. Yeah.
He knows that he has the authority. We've documented it for him. I've read to him the law, myself, to the president, read him the provisions of the law and said, Mr. President, please take action. I don't think he's allowed to do it. I'm not sure Joe Biden is actually making these decisions. I think it's staff around him, and they're pushing him to hold to keep the border open.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it seems like. People are wondering who's actually running the country. Yeah. But you just mentioned your first major speech on the floor. That was something that a lot of people were talking about. Congratulations, 100 days. You gave that major speech. Walk us through what kind of environment you're facing right now. How was the first 100 days, and what are your priorities going forward?
In some ways, it feels like 1,000 days.
Yeah, I bet.
In some ways, it feels like it's just yesterday. All the days run together. There's a lot to do right now. We're facing the greatest collection of crises, you could argue, since maybe, I don't know, the World War II era, maybe the Civil War, when you look at all the headwinds we're facing. But we're keeping a steady hand at the wheel. The House Republican Conference is a small majority. Right now, literally, we have the smallest majority in U.S. history.
What is it, one vote
margin.
Wow.
Because I have a couple folks out on health leave right now. But so we navigate that every day. We get everybody to work together. We had major achievements that we're getting through the House tax bill this past week to show that this can still work. Now, I believe we're going to grow the majority. I'm here in New York because Mazi Pilip, we have this special election coming up in New York's 3rd District. She's going to get that job done. It'll send a strong message to the Democrats that coming into this election cycle, we've got a great run, great candidates. We're feeling really bullish about the future.
Well, Mazi Pilip is also, it's a great story because she is a legal immigrant.
Yes.
Right? Her story. And she is running now for the old George Santos seat.
Right.
So what are your expectations come November in terms of expanding that majority?
Well, look, let me plug our website, growthemajority.com. That's the House Republicans' effort to expand this majority. I think we will. We've recruited an extraordinary stable of candidates. I mean, workhorses, not show ponies. People who are very credible, know their districts. They're ready to come, roll up their sleeves and help us solve these great challenges facing the country. And our incumbents are running really strong as well. Maria, we're running great in deep blue districts, blue states. You know why? Because these radical progressive governors and mayors are destroying their communities, crimes through the roof, cost of living, all the rest. And so people are looking at that and they say, you know what? I'm going to let my voice be heard. I'm going to vote for a Republican for Congress. And that's what the polls are showing.
Well, I mean, people feel the effects of these policies from the White House every day, with inflation to the impact of foreign policy decisions as well. But you just mentioned the tax stimulus bill. It passed the House, but it is still taking lots of incoming fire. A lot of people say it expands welfare. Your thoughts?
No, it's not true. There's a lot of misinformation about this bill. What we did was we extended some of the critical elements of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which is, of course, one of President Trump's signature achievements. And we talked about that. We got a lot of Democrats on record in the House voting to extend those Trump policies. So that's a really strong showing. It's pro-growth. It will, of course, allow for research and development, innovation, for the write-offs for that. That's a huge thing for small businesses around the country. We've heard that everywhere we've gone. And it's pro-family as well. It allows for larger families to have the child tax credit, not just small families. So lots of good policy in there.
You've also got the government funding deadline just over a month away. I want to talk to you about that because lawmakers are facing a March 1st and March 8th deadline. Will there be another continuing resolution, Mr. Speaker?
I think we're done with it.
Are you going to be able to get these appropriations bills done?
We are. I've talked to all the Cardinals, our chief appropriators, just a couple of days ago. They're working methodically through that process. We're going to get our conservative policy writers on these appropriations bills to try to change that spending trajectory. We have to do that. But we broke the Christmas omnibus fever that's bedeviled Washington forever, and that gave us those two staggered deadlines. But they are upon us. That'll be here relatively tomorrow. So the strong work is being done, and I think we'll meet those deadlines. Because
already you're hearing people say, oh, the same thing is happening to Mike Johnson that happened to Kevin McCarthy. All of this pushback in terms of, spending the same levels that Nancy Pelosi put in place. You're sure you're not going to continue this again?
Yeah, well, I took the reins when those deals were already made. So what we're trying to do is make sure that we can institute conservative policies there. When we grow this majority and we win back the Senate for the Republican Party, and when President Trump is returned to the White House, I'm convinced all those things are going to happen. We're going to do a 180-degree turn. We're going to have a much better time in January next year than we're having right now, because then we'll be able to actually institute all the conservative policies and reforms that we know are critical. Reducing regulation, reducing taxes, getting the economy going again. Right now, the federal government is working against the free market. It's working against innovators and job creators and entrepreneurs. We have to reverse that. We know how to do it, and we're looking forward to it.
So you think that you will be able to work with President Trump should he return to the White House in terms of progressing and getting things done?
Absolutely. He and I are talking about that already. He's a great champion for pro-growth policies. We proved that, of course, in his first term. Right before COVID, remember, we had the greatest economy in the history of the world. That's because the policies that President Trump and the Republican Congress advanced. And so we're going to do that again, and we'll get this thing going.
I want to get your perspective sort of from 30,000 feet on the money that we send overseas, because this is really the crux of the fight, right? You and your colleagues want something done at the border. You want the Trump policies back in place to secure the border. But your colleagues over in the Senate, they want money to Ukraine. They want money elsewhere. How do you see all of this?
Well, we're trying to make very clear, and I have since the day I got the gavel in late October. The very next morning, I went to the Situation Room at the White House, and I told all of the principals there in the administration and the key leaders in Congress, we have to secure the American border first before we can talk about anything else around the world.
I saw what you said. Yeah, then you said it at a press conference later. Yeah.
We've been very consistent about that. That's what the American people want and deserve and need. Now, we get that priority done first. Then we talk about the rest of it. Of course, we need to fund Israel, for example. In fact, the House voted just within a few days of my having the gavel to send over that supplemental relief package. That also is sitting on Chuck Schumer's desk and has been for 3 months. Those are priorities that we have. You know, there's a lot of debate about Ukraine. I've been telling the White House since day one, you have to tell us what is the end game? What's the strategy? How would we have accountability for those funds? We all understand it's critically important to not allow Vladimir Putin to march through Europe, of course, right? But the White House has not had a clear message on what we're doing there. What is our role? How long will this take? They haven't supplied those answers. Those are important questions that we're asking. And as we sit here today, still that information is not provided to Congress.
Well, it's incredible to me that it seems that the foreign policy decisions coming out of this White House has actually sparked our adversaries and our enemies to get on the march. What do we do about that? I mean, from 30,000 feet, how do you see foreign policy and Congress's role in terms of putting America first?
The Biden foreign policy is a disaster. Everybody knows it. It's so dangerous because we're projecting weakness on the world stage. And as we say all the time, that invites aggression. That's why all of our adversaries around the world are acting so provocatively. We didn't have any of this under President Trump. Remember? You know why? Because they feared him. They knew that he had a strong hand. It's critically important, as Reagan used to remind us, that we maintain peace through strength. We have to project strength, and we're simply not doing that right now. And that's why this is so dangerous.
Well, one of the issues is that, and certainly viewers think this, is that people get into Congress, they spend 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years there, they forget who they're working for, and they want term limits. This was one of the first things you started to talk about, right? Tell me about that, your efforts. You wanted term limits in place.
Well, yeah, I arrived in Washington in 2017, same time President Trump.
But it failed to make the full House last year.
It did. The first bill I filed in Congress was the term limits bill. We've done that every Congress since. That's something we've got to socialize amongst the members and build consensus around. But, you know, desperate times call for desperate measures. I think that your point is well taken.
Well, South Carolina Congressman Ralph Norman introduced that measure as well, and it was killed in the Judiciary Committee when 4 Republicans and all the Democrats voted against it. A recent poll found 87% favor term limits for members of Congress, Speaker.
Yeah, and so do I. So we'll look at that. I mean, it would be a major change to the system. When the Founding Fathers, the genius of the framers, what they put together, I don't think they could have anticipated anyone coming to Congress and staying for 50 years or longer, and that's frankly what happens now.
Unfortunately, that's what we're seeing. Okay, let me move on to the Biden impeachment inquiry, picking up steam with the House Judiciary and Oversight Committees, both interviewing Biden associates Rob Walker and Eric Schwerin. James Biden and Hunter Biden expected to sit for closed-door depositions later this month. Impeachment investigations also hearing from James Biden associate Joey Langston, a disbarred Mississippi attorney who served in prison for bribery. He told the committee he gave James Biden $800,000 in loans. James only paid half back. Mr. Speaker, we're getting dribs and drabs of this, but what's your sense of this inquiry?
Listen, impeachment is that power is one of the heaviest that the Constitution gives to the House, and it does reside exclusively in the House. So we have a responsibility to follow the facts wherever they lead, and that's what the House Judiciary Committee, Oversight, Ways and Means have been doing methodically, carefully over almost a year now. That we have followed those facts, and they're alarming. We have IRS whistleblower testimony. We have the associates of the Biden family who've come in to testify. We have all these bank records and the financial records that show that something is very wrong here. There was a lot of smoke. We believe there's fire. We're connecting the final dots there. As you noted, James Biden comes in for a deposition the end of this month, and then right after that, Hunter Biden. I think we'll connect the remaining dots, and we'll see where this goes.
Do you expect articles before the summer?
We shall see. You know, the White House has been stonewalling on us. They tried to avoid giving us the remaining records, and they resisted the subpoenas. We've had to enforce some of that and almost go to court to do so. But we're finally getting to the end of that, and we're going to draw it to a conclusion, and we'll see. I don't want to prejudge it because I shouldn't, but I am deeply concerned, and I think the American people are, about what we've seen here.
Let me end where we began, and that is this border deal and any agreement. What's most important to you that needs to be in that? You've done H.R. 2 already, so we we know where your head is at in terms of the border. But when you're hearing all of this conversation about 5,000 people being let in before anything gets done, tell me where your priorities are and what needs to be in this. And is it a no-go if those things are not in it?
Yeah, it's a no-go if what we're being told is true. It's a no-go in the House. And I've made that very clear to everybody involved. We took 64 House Republicans to the border January 3rd. It was the largest congressional delegation trip that's ever been done. I led that down there. We were talking to the people in charge. The deputy chief of Border Patrol told us, I feel as though right now we're supposed to be administering an open fire hydrant. He said, we don't need more buckets. We need to reduce the flow. The best way to reduce the flow is, for example, to reinstate Remain in Mexico. Trump's policy that says safe third party is where people seeking asylum, safe third countries is where they should stay. So you did that. They told us on the border, Maria, just that one executive order alone by President Biden, which he could do this morning, would reduce the flow by 70%.
Wow.
He knows that. I told him that, and he refuses to do it. That and a few other changes would wipe this problem out, but he won't do it.
And why not?
I do not know. I genuinely believe that originally the idea was to bring people in, open the border, have the flow come in, and turn them into voters. There's no other reason that would seem to make sense. But now it's completely out of control, and it's destroying every community in the country. Every state is a border state now. We have to stop this madness.
Do you feel the same pressure that your predecessor felt, Kevin McCarthy, that you've got a wing of the Republican Party that are going to just create drama and havoc if you don't do what they want?
No, I don't feel that pressure. My job is to work with everybody every day, keep the team moving in the same direction. We'll do that. You know, some of my friends want us to throw Hail Mary passes on every play. That's not a game book. You know, what you have to do is 3 yards in a cloud of dust, especially when you have the smallest majority in the history of the country. So we're realists. We're also committed conservatives, and we're going to get that job done and keep showing the American people what it looks like to govern.
Bottom line, in the coming week, let's say, hypothetically, you get the text tonight, Friday night, going into the weekend. What happens next week?
Devil's in the details. We'll check it out. I'm not prejudging anything, but I've told them the necessary elements of H.R. 2 are what are required to get control of the border. I've been consistent. That's our standard. We'll be looking for that.
Mr. Speaker, it's great to have you this morning.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, and congratulations on your 100th day.
Thanks.
We're honored that you're here with us today.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Speaker Mike Johnson. We'll be right back with Fox Business' Susan Lee. She's live from the Apple Store in Apple Store.